Hey, Bijan. I'm gonna take it out of the room. Yeah, go. All right, 12:05. Probably time to get started. Looks like my screen's frozen. Can you guys see me or? There we go, in the cave. Okay, so we can dive in and get started. We'll see if anyone else joins as we go. Thanks everyone for joining the bi-weekly live peer community call. An opportunity for us all to see each other's faces, to hear the latest and greatest from kind of the various different things that people are working on, opportunity to ask any questions, share any updates, and talk about anything we want as a project. Open to all, but largely focused on kind of the core team that's working on it. So for today's agenda, I wanted to do a couple things. Just get a quick update from everyone on our status around this upcoming tributary release next week. Then I wanted to do a fun exercise, which is to explore and map out the live peer wall of shame, inspired by something that the Status Project did, which I think was a good exercise that we can all participate in. And then I wanted Eric and Ivan to give a little demo or walkthrough of the metrics dashboard and project that they've been working on diligently, so we can all see how to use that. Sound good?
Yeah, another thing I want to add is I want to give Blake some time to share kind of what he's working on as well.
Excellent. Sounds good. Okay, so for
hey Doug.
Yes. Hey Blake.
I only have about like 10 minutes. I got to run to another meeting, so I would love to share if it's possible to front load that. That'd be awesome.
You're up. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Hey everybody. I've been working as a contractor with the live peer team for maybe the last like 2 weeks or so. And I've been brainstorming how we can get the developer community more involved. And the sort of specific developer that we're looking at is more like the web developer side. So how do we get web developers to sort of build on the live peer protocol? In particular, how would we get people excited at a hackathon to build on the live peer protocol? And sort of our test case will be East Berlin, which I'll be at in a couple weeks. So the thought was to build like an enhanced sort of client experience, maybe that sort of would exist alongside the livepeer.tv player. And basically what that's going to look like is hopefully we'll be able to use Flash to capture a stream in browser so that we can replace OBS, send that stream to a livepeer node, and then on the consumer side, be able to have like a WebSocket powered chat. So if you're broadcasting and you want to have the folks that are watching your stream be involved and be able to talk to the presenter and that sort of thing, have like a nice sort of like live chat interface, and then sort of to leverage sort of the idea that you're already using a crypto native application, allow people to tip the broadcaster if they have MetaMask installed using ETH. So that's the basic gist of what I'm working on, and I'm also going to write up like a README, heavily detailed sort of explanation that also tries to explain to people sort of what are the pieces of the puzzle and sort of where does live peer sit in the stack, and which pieces could you sort of swap out, and so people can have a better idea of imagining what would I build with livepeer, sort of soup to nuts.
Awesome. How's it going so far, hacking on trying to get webcam streams in the browser into livepeer? Is it aspirational, or have you seen this working so far?
I literally haven't touched that piece yet. Eric and I brainstormed a little bit on it yesterday, and he suggested using Flash. I've never used Flash before, so my hope is that there's just like a really simple JavaScript API that allows me to just like capture that stream. Having programmed for a long time, it leads me to believe that like anything that I imagine will be easy will be much more difficult than.
Yeah, I remember being able to use it for like in the very early days of livepeer before hacking together the old player. But I have to dig up that old code and see. Like I forgot a lot of the complexity around that.
I would argue that Flash is really dead, and that it would be a lost effort in the end because no user would ever use it. It would be better. We would be better off if we think about a strategy how to implement WebRTC as an ingest.
Yeah, I think Philip, I think that's really the long-term goal to get WebRTC working. But for this to work, we would have to be able to take WebRTC ingest in the livepeer node, and that's currently not supported. And I think it'll be quite. It'll take a month or two to add that in. And for the sake of this hack, it might be out of scope.
Okay, fair enough.
Josh, another option too is we could use Gateway from WebRTC to Flash, but that's another a moving piece, and another moving part that we would or someone would have to be able to run that somewhere. So, but that's an option to avoid Flash.
That was my original thought, and I was looking into how that would work, and I couldn't find anything that was really easy. That basically it's kind of like running a Node.js server in the background or something, and have that Node.js server that turns WebRTC into RTMP, and then push that stream into a locally running livepeer node. So, like, do you have?
Yeah, that does involve. Yeah, there's a couple moving parts in there. There's turn off and stuff like that.
Cool. So I know Blake's going to have to run in a moment, and we could definitely pick this discussion up in a GitHub issue or in the Discord channel to find an engineering solution here. But excited. In Berlin in a month, or less than a month now.
Well, yeah, let's Josh and Blake, let's catch up offline about this.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So moving on, getting back to our upcoming release, which was scheduled for next Monday. I know we have a checklist that still has a lot of open tasks of things we need to do. First and foremost, actually producing the candidate build that we're going to be released. I know there was a pull request to address some of the updated comments and whatnot. Does Josh or Eric maybe want to give an update on where we're at with our candidate, our release candidate?
Sure.
Yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, so we merged the new router system a few weeks ago. So that's currently in GitHub. Let's see. So about a couple of weeks, what we've been working on is, well, it's kind of funny because we have a new way of connecting to the transcoder, but we don't have any way to pull information from the transcoder. So we can connect, but we can't get results from it. So I recently spent the last few weeks, couple weeks, building that feature. So we're going through the review process right now, and it's been a lot of good feedback. And I think we should be able to merge that by the end of the week. So that would be, I think, the biggest step for us, because it helps us avoid our old networking system. So, we've had a lot of issues with that, and it wasn't really reliable. Black screen or broadcaster offline, all of that. So hopefully that will be the thing of the past. So yeah, we look forward to that.
This is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, this will be great. Eric, how does kind of that progress tie into what you expect the release timeline to be in terms of our testing and feeling good about pushing this out?
Yeah, I think I feel like the testing can be done mostly for the mainnet around just maintaining the status quo as it is today, which is basically allowing the transcoders to still be able to call reward every day and keep the node up. As long as we don't have any degradation from that, I'm happy to do the release because I have a feeling that most of the video transcoding and the live streaming workflow is going to be done on RankB anyways for the first few weeks after the release, and I'm okay with doing the release and do a quick follow up if we find bugs around the live streaming piece.
Right, and so that puts pressure on the other areas of the checklist around auditing the smart contract updates, because that's actually something that could kind of break the protocol theoretically. I know you and Yanin have been looking at that. I want to put some time in that as well. We've been testing on RankB for a while without issue. Yanin, any update on the smart contract side? We feeling good?
Yeah, feeling good on that side. We've already done a bunch of manual testing in addition to setting up the proper test suites for each of the protocol changes that are relevant for this release. So feeling good about that. I started doing a last sort of due diligence pass through yesterday, and we'll be going through that today as well, just to do a final review of the full code diff from what the current master branch within that repo looks like today versus what the current commit hash represented by the deployed contracts on mainnet are, and just going over everything as a whole, doing a manual pass through, and then trying to add any additional test cases that might not be there, but feeling pretty good about that and should be done with that hopefully by the end of today / tomorrow. So barring any unforeseen circumstances, we should be all right.
Excellent. We got Yanin on camera just in time for the end of his update. Cool. Okay. Anything else about the release that anyone wants to ask questions about or talk about?
So we do have a little bit of we do have to release the Explorer, the new version of the Explorer, in combination of the contract update, and that PR has been sitting in the code base for a while, and I think the branch needs to be we need to merge master back into that branch.
Yeah, I think we need to. I don't know if there's any merge conflicts, but at the very least, we need to fix that up.
Yeah. So I actually have a staging version of the Explorer deployed on S3, but that's a little out of date now. So if we can merge master into that branch, I can then put it off and build it and deploy it on RankB, so we can do some manual testing on the Explorer.
Yeah, I can do that today. Shouldn't take that long.
So I'm going to be doing a transcoder specific post in the forum and then a broader community post on the blog. I know Josh has some tasks for updating the technical documentation around the node as well. So largely, it's going to be the transcoders who are most affected in terms of they actually have to update their software and start it with potentially different argument, I think. But it shouldn't be too heavy of a update. Most of this will happen in the background.
Yeah. We will actually have several options to remove and add. And so hopefully, overall, everything will be probably just a little bit easier to manage. But yeah, I'll be writing the documentation about that, and I will post it on the forum for everyone to see and have some time to prepare for that change.
And the big update will be that for transcoders, we'll be able to partially unbond tokens using the command line interface. So that'll open up their ability to distribute tokens to the communities and the participants and their ecosystems that they've been waiting to distribute token to, which will be great.
Is it then also possible to bond to different transcoders from the same account?
No.
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually not even like prioritized. Like that's not coming up on the roadmap or anything. I know it would be a nice to have, but there's a workaround right now, and I think we have more urgent protocol issues to address.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
Yep. Okay, so that's the release. All right, so now I wanted to do a fun group team exercise of identifying the livepeer wall of shame.
Do you want to do that, or want to do the demo for the metrics first?
Okay, good idea. Let's do the demo first, and then we can spend the rest of the time on the wall of shame.
All right. So I don't know if everyone has met Ivan already, but Ivan is the newest team member, and really excited to have him on board working on livepeer. He's come from the livepeer community. I think I first met him online when he started just doing PRs on the on the livepeer code base, which was awesome. Yeah, Ivan, you want to just quickly introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello, I'm Ivan. I've come across livepeer, doing some work on Bitcoin, and I've really liked this idea, and I've reached to Eric to try to apply to full-time position here. And so far, I'm very excited to work with you guys. I was working on adding more of metrics, so we have at least some visibility of what's going on in the network. It was landed in, was merged already, so with new release it will be in code base, so it will be released. I can show you, I think, 1 second. Second. So better. Somehow. Yep. Or as you can see at our new metrics, it right now it records data from broadcasters. It tries to record how it's doing, how its well is going on. You can see here some was some videos. It's here you can see it's by by stream. So every row it's stream. You can look into details of stream if needed. Some more, but here you can see those streams was every one segment was uploaded and transported, but here probably it was it was mine. I am too often have problems with transcoding, so you can see 85% of segments was not transcoded actually. Yep, I hope it will give us some overview of what's happening and will give us ability to find problems and solve it. Yep. No. You can here you can filter by some time data. Yep. So that's mostly all I have to.
That's great. Been totally missing this visibility into the actual transcode jobs and how many segments are transcoded and how many segments failed or were not transcoded. So being able to see this in one place is awesome.
Yeah, so Ivan is based in Kiev, Ukraine.
Yes.
Father of 4 children. He's been working with Josh a lot on this project. And as we can see, I think now, like, I'm really happy with how it turned out, and now we're able to dig into what's happening on the network a lot better and figure out where the errors are happening and start being more responsible about the success rate and the stability of our video streams.
Yeah, it looks like a great step in the right direction from having no visibility to having some. So I've got one question about it. Who's the end user that's envisaged for using this interface? You know, who are you thinking of when you're building?
So when we started this project, it's very much as an internal tool. So if you look at this is actually running. This is actually only collecting data from the Ring network and only collecting data from the nodes that livepeer runs. So basically, when you start the livepeer node, you can manually add a flag that says, I want to volunteer to report the data to a server that livepeer runs, and then livepeer will only when that happens, livepeer will collect the data and display it to our internal engineering team for debugging purposes.
Cool, very nice, thank you.
Yeah, kind of like ETH stats, where your node doesn't send metrics to any central server by default, but if you want to volunteer them in order to help give visibility into how the network's doing, you can start it with a flag. It's great. Awesome. All right, wall of shame time.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so I read a blog post that Status, the mobile Ethereum client, put out, where they published their wall of shame, and it was a bunch of team members of Status who got together in one place to talk about issues they were concerned about in terms of security of their system and user experience of their system. And by identifying all of the things that they were concerned about or thought might be weaknesses and just putting them in one place, it gave them a really good set of targets for things they could do to improve or remove those potential issues. So I don't know if people had a chance to scroll through the post that that I sent around. I'm trying to present it. Let's see. So I'm gonna have to rejoin this in 1 second. Trying to use Brave browser, but forcing me over to Chrome. 1 second. I'm back. See if I can present now. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this was the post from Status, and they basically tried to order a list of the shameful things within their protocol in terms of severity and risk. So just some examples at the top are that they're storing seed phrases for users in their database, which is a huge security hole, only if users haven't backed up their account already. They're doing, their cluster is easy to take down in spam, so it's a single point of failure. They want to replace Mixpanel because they're sending all the user statistics to a central service, and that's against their ethos, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought this exercise would be kind of a good team thing to get some crowdsourced ideas down about the things that we currently do within livepeer, within the software, within the community. Like, for example, they have this spam in chat as one of the things that's community related. We can put in one place into a livepeer wall of shame, and we can try and organize these tasks by high priority, medium priority, low priority. And then a really effective thing will be, as people are setting maybe personal OKRs for a quarter, or people are setting their goals for the week, to think, what can I do to mitigate or remove one of these kind of sources of weakness or quote unquote shame within the protocol. On kind of our current product, technical platforms, community. I think that, of course, in the company and how we work, that we can always, open to feedback on and can try and improve. But let's try and focus this on the application and kind of technical nature of the project itself, so that we can, set some targets for things we can do to mitigate these things. So just as an example, I have a list in my notes, but I'd rather kind of crowdsource and open up the microphone to everyone. Just as an example, I say a medium priority wall of shame is that we are currently not running the verification service on mainnet. So segments that are transcoded are not being verified by anyone on mainnet. And I think it's pretty straightforward to think about how we can actually mitigate that one, but it's currently shameful that we're not doing that with what I consider to be a medium severity. But just I'll make notes on anything that anyone shares, but I'd like to open it up to the crowd here.
Yeah,
So,
Josh here.
Yep.
Really, for me, I think our most, kind of our most concerning issue is that, it's related to verification. And I feel like verification really makes or breaks us as a decentralized organization. So right now, our verification process is fully centralized, and we really want to move, away from that. So even if we have the verification process in, 1 second. Let me start again. So even if we have a verification process running on OMIT and it's centralized, just thinking that in that verification process itself, it really makes or breaks us right now as a decentralized organization. So it's important to feel like we have good strategies around that. And being able to, being able to be flexible with fairness and being able to accommodate growth in the network.
Yeah, since we're talking about verification, I would also highlight that it's kind of broken up into two parts, and both parts are like very fragile right now, which is what the verification task is and the method with which you achieve consensus on the correctness of the execution of their verification task. So the latter is definitely centralized right now, but even the former is like pretty fragile right now since we're using a bit exact comparison method, and that bit exact comparison method like doesn't even really work well. It forces you to make a lot of assumptions even if you're relying on a CPU architecture and you're not even using a GPU architecture. So I think that's like an additional thing to really highlight, where in order to solve these bottlenecks, we not only need to address the centralization problem with regards to how we act, like who gets to determine if something is verified or not, but also the process with which that computation is actually verified and what that task looks like.
Yep, definitely agree with all of that. Tried to capture those as high priority issues related to verification. What else? Who's got other topics?
I have a few that are, I guess, not as broad as those, but they're more smaller things that I think we might be tracking somewhere already, but I'll just list them out. Right now, for the node releases, we don't have the notion of verified builds. So there's no signed hash of a binary that anyone can verify that they're running the correct binary. I think that would be helpful overall later on. The node does not handle chain reorgs right now, which is also a problem. I think there's an issue in Go livepeer to eventually address that. Library code duplication across livepeer.js and the protocol repo. And I think this was originally because a lot of the tests in the protocol repo make use of like certain utilities that do helpful like data transformations for submission to the contracts. And I think these are essentially duplicated in livepeer.js. And it'd be nice if we could just share the same set of library code, especially because there's the chance that different libraries do it differently. And that might be something that might be worth considering if we keep using this monorepo architecture for livepeer.js. Or key security and no notion of key hierarchy for the node. This is captured in one of the LIPs that are not going to be included in the tributary release, but I know is high on the priority list. So basically providing more tools for a node operator to be more comfortable with using a private key and signing transactions. Right now, it's basically a single key, and if you lose it, you're straight out of luck. Yeah, I think that's it for now.
Yeah, I definitely had the key security one myself as a high issue. These are all great technical issues. Another one that I had that was pretty high for me was that our media.livepeer.org channels are not currently using our production mainnet transcoding cloud.
Nice one. You beat me to it. I was gonna say this one too. So, yeah. I know Eric has had some plans to help move that across. So happy to engage to make that happen. Sorry about the noise.
Chris, are you stealing public internet at the Berlin train station?
Absolutely not. Stealing something, a public resource. I would never do something like this.
Not stealing, it's just free riding.
And like Yondon, can you get on the screen? Like we want to see your lips move. You're still off stage. He can shift his chair. Yeah, that's better. That's much better. The deadly duo of Tang and Fu. Not deadly.
All right, who's got other ideas? Any?
Yeah, Josh here. I have another one about key security. And let me think here. Right now, if the key is compromised, then it's really game over for the person running that code. So it was just making me think about different ways that we can avoid that situation.
Yep. Yeah, I think the key hierarchy stuff that Yannick had mentioned is a good starting point there. And yeah, we can get way more kind of robust and reliable in terms of setups that prevent a transcoder from just getting stuck in the state where they can get a single key compromised and never be able to kind of recover. Cool.
Josh here. I have another one too related to how the new network system works. Right now we're using TLS for encryption, which is good. But the problem with that is the problem that we're creating new certificates every time this code starts up. And there's really no guarantee that the connection will have the person's actually trying to connect to. So to me, that seems like a medium to low priority. And I'm trying to work around that a little bit by having a sign-up message itself. But it would be a little bit more robust if we could bake that code into the certificate itself.
Cool. Sounds good. Anyone have any community or communications oriented ones?
I do. Currently, the transcoder would not be able to block certain types of content. He would basically have to agree to carry any type of content, and yeah, that might be an issue for some people.
Related to that is how transcoders are forced to run an IPFS node right now, and I don't think we've looked into really the implications of forcing a transcoder to run on a public IPFS node, and there hasn't been that much talk about, like, does there need to be a specific configuration for the IPFS node that the transcoder is running in order to properly, I don't know, yeah, just what the implications of that are and whether they're acceptable or not.
Because you think by doing that, their node may be hosting or serving content that they don't intend to host or serve?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yep. One that I had is that I think we represent a lot of these aspirational one, for example, whereas at the current moment, the network certainly doesn't live up to that claim or promise. So, you know, a little bit of a mismatch between what we're kind of representing and what the network currently does. And of course, that's the nature of this. Started as just a white paper and an aspirational project, and we have a lot to build. But at the same time, we should always be, you know, clear and transparent about where we are and what the network can support today.
I've got another one, Josh here. So related to the transcoders, and so right now the transcoders Well, the network itself isn't really robust to the transcoder failure. So if that happens, the only options are to create a new job, and that costs money, and it's frustrating, and it's not a good experience.
Yeah. I think a lot of the work around the V2 architecture is aimed to address that one for sure. And right now it's a huge problem for the network.
Currently, the possible participation is based on the stake weight and the 15 slots leaderboard. So that's like a flaw, right? So we do not have room for anybody to participate.
I don't know how the orchestrator model is fully going to work, but from what I understand, it introduces an element of trust and reputation to the orchestrator piece. Is that right? And
yeah.
So that to me kind of is, in some ways, the antithesis to building a trustless network, which still makes us vulnerable to a 51%.
I mean, the implementation hasn't been done yet, and I would argue that the broadcaster does not have to trust the orchestrators. It's more how much redundant work we can allow, how much overhead we can allow, right? And reducing the overhead might be introducing trust. But in a sense, we do not have to build a system that is trusted here. It's just a trade-off on the overhead.
Yeah, I think the element of trust that you might be referring to is the notion of transcoders that participate in a pool with the orchestrator, basically having to trust the orchestrator to pay them correctly. And I think this goes to the discussion of like a centralized pool architecture versus a decentralized pool architecture. This is pretty similar to just the concept of worker pools in existing networks, where just from an efficiency and like ease of implementation standpoint, the easiest first thing to do is decentralized pool architecture, because it's difficult to provably pay people based upon how much work they've contributed. But that doesn't preclude the possibility of that more decentralized architecture. And I think at the very least, if these pop up, these are not like a globally forced trust change. This is like a locally forced trust change, where it's like an individual's decision to participate in one of these things, or they can choose to go out by themselves and not trust this orchestrator if it's using a centralized one.
Right, yeah, we should define first what trust really means and where it happens, right? And yeah, I didn't really even think about the orchestrator-transcoder relation here, but more about the broadcaster and orchestrator relationship. The risk with transcoders always will be limited to, the workload they can do in a day or whatever the orchestrator decides on what his payout periods is. So that always going to be way more limited than a broadcaster who broadcasts jobs in a network.
I hear Linos.
All right, this is great so far. Any others that anyone is sitting on?
I just think it's always good to say, like, how much would it cost for Akamai to compromise the network? Or anyone, like, how much would that cost?
So, like I capture this, so like network could be compromised by a big player for some cost, and we don't know that cost right now.
So she's right. There's also that attack vector where somebody accumulates a lot of livepeer token to, shut us down one day. I mean, it's very unlikely, but could happen. The attack vector would be bond to the current worth of livepeer token.
Why is it unlikely?
So first, how the distribution worked. They would, if they would like to do this, how would they get the token? They would have to buy it from somebody, or they would have to Merkle mine it, right? So they would have to basically decide on the attack today to be able to accumulate the livepeer token. Otherwise, the inflation alone and what the team and the early investors hold might not allow them to accumulate the 33% they would need for the attack.
Yeah. Well, let's say, a year from now, they approach Jake or CoinFund and they're like, listen, we'll give you X for Y.
It's absolutely an attack vector, and it comes with the value of the livepeer token that you have to accumulate. However you do this, right? It could also be a delegation scheme where somebody says, hey, delegate all your tokens to me, and once he has all that power in the network, he behaves badly, right? And we would have to have slashing then in place already to try to reverse his actions.
Yeah, I think the reality is we just don't really have a rigorous framework for defining what is like the dollar value at cost for various actions on the network. And that's definitely also exacerbated by the fact that there's different notions of what an attack on the network really means. There's the notion of attack where you're actually violating a slashing condition, so you get penalized. But at least as of today, there's numerous things that you can do that harm the performance of the network that don't even involve slashing conditions, and they're more oriented around just not performing well or not showing up, and there's no penalties for that. Obviously, it's hard to design penalties for all these things, but just acknowledging the fact that these attacks can take shape in different forms, and the reality is we just don't really have a good understanding of the impact of them right now.
So what we did, at least for the V2 design in the marketplace, is that a broadcaster could always decide which his orchestrator is, who's his orchestrator, independent from the stake weight of the orchestrator. So even so, we would have a big number of faulty messengers in the network. The network could still decide on fixed relationships that they have a stronger belief are not faulty. So in the end, you just will not be forced to work with somebody who might not perform that in the end. So
I have one that's more like community-based, user-based, which is we've been focusing in the past probably 6 months building a network for a developer, for a programmer to use, but we really don't have a good experience created for a new developer to learn about livepeer and get up to speed in a very short amount of time. And so I imagine something like the Twilio's doc or like Stripe's doc, like something super simple and super easy to get people on board.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
I've got another one. So right now we're a little bit vulnerable to gas costs.
Yeah.
So for starters, for the starting round, we could cost let's say $20, $30 to call the awards for each round, and then that could cost several dollars depending on what the gas is.
I had that one as well.
Network.
Yeah, we definitely want to use that for the main Ethereum network as much as possible. All right, this has been great. Maybe room for one more.
In addition to Ethereum, so right now the prices are going down. So that means the transcoders would have to increase their pricing to be able to make up that profit. So the pricing is not stable.
Yeah, absolutely right. And also, you can't react on the market quickly. You have to wait for the next round to change your price. And that's a public act. Whenever you do it, everybody can see that you do it. So you can't secretly change your price to win a share of the network.
Yep, I think pricing in a stable coin is definitely a feature that could help address this, and the off-chain negotiation could help address this, but right now it's certainly a weakness. All right, so this is great. I have this board here of high, medium, and low priorities. I quickly shuffled them around, but I think anyone should feel free to move one of these tasks in the project management repo into the correct priority bucket, so that we can get them in order. And then I think it's really helpful to look at these on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis as we're setting goals, and ask ourselves, which one should we target at addressing? Have we done it? Let's check them off the list, and let's get this list eliminated down to 0 items as quickly as possible.
Could we maybe add one video related about the latency and saying that our latency is optimized? Because that's something that we could easily do, gain a few more seconds of efficiency with smaller segments and maybe a smarter way how we deliver. I hope for the new network stuff actually to open the path to improve this.
Yes. Yeah, now at least we can measure it.
Yeah, a good start, right?
Yeah, and while we're at it, I should add another one related to video and even our high-level objective, is that today we still can't offer a truly fully decentralized end-to-end network at scale anyway. There's still reliance on some centralized components to deliver video at scale, and the whole ecosystem will have to mature before the full stack is available. But this should still be, part of our goal and focus to work towards that.
I would say we should try to say, okay, only 3 can be in high, then 5 in medium, and the rest in low to help focus and rank things.
Yep.
And agree on what's most important here.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Status as well chain was actually ranked in what they perceive to be priority order of 30 items, and yeah, being able to focus on only a few high priority ones is right. So I'll take it on myself to do a priority pass. I'll ask for everyone's input and feedback, and we'll get to a ranking.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. So stop sharing there. I think that's it for my agenda. A few minutes left. Any questions that anyone has, or any last things people want to discuss in the last 4 minutes?
I'd love to hear a little bit about the ETH India experience that people had. Yeah, just what
Let's
was
do it.
What was your, if you had to do a 3-sentence high-level takeaway, what would that be?
Okay, so my 3-sentence takeaway is developers in India are new to blockchain. The concept of decentralization is foreign to them. So they're kind of thinking about blockchain as a subset of software development and not software as a subset of blockchain. That makes sense? And so there's a lot of work to be done in terms of onboarding and lack of resources when they think about Solidity, and can't necessarily afford a full course that would share kind of a real onboarding curriculum that can ramp someone up to really be crypto native. Those resources are kind of nascent in the full industry. But that said, there's a lot of really interesting use cases in India with banks requiring all of these KYC checks from potential customers, and with lack of safety and the large percentage of the population which is informal economy doesn't have like proof of identity or access to land or so there's a lot of potential, and the use cases that people came up with were really real, like the reason why I think a lot of people get excited about the potential of this technology. So that's my takeaway.
Okay, I'm gonna talk even though there's a train coming. I'd say my takeaway from it is that like blockchain and the development that goes around it is really super embryonic in that country. People, I don't think the developers so much get, what are the instances where you would use a blockchain and when you wouldn't use a blockchain. So kind of just like some base level learning. I think it's something that can really kind of help them move them on. Secondly, just learning a bit more about the regulatory environment that they have there. It's really kind of draconian, and dealing in crypto is completely illegal, and this kind of kills a lot of people's vibe. I know they've got a few kind of like high court hearings happening in the next month or so, so that kind of thing may relax. But I think there's a really, there's a lot of appetite for it. It's the kind of thing that the guys there have learned, heard a lot from the outside about this emerging technology, and they're all kind of super keen to participate. And I think there's huge opportunity there for, engaging some of this energy. Some statistic about 1 million computer science graduates graduating from Indian universities every year, and that's like, wow. I also look at it from the perspective that 1 ETH goes a lot further in terms of living costs in somewhere like India than it does in somewhere like Berlin or Manhattan. The last one, actually, just like on a more positive note, is finding a few people in the hackathon that were actually really very deeply involved in development of Ethereum. So there was one guy who was working in a project based in Delhi that was working on building a Plasma implementation, and was direct connected to Vitalik on some of this stuff. And then another guy who got some Ethereum Community Fund grant to help Christian Reitweissner build out 0.5 Solidity. So it was really interesting to see that kind of really broad spectrum of people who came, and they just about knew how to spell blockchain, and definitely didn't know how to code Solidity, and at one point were coming to me to ask me for how do you code Solidity, and I'm like, I have no idea. But at the other end of the spectrum, some really kind of sophisticated and advanced developers of Ethereum blockchain related stuff. So it's a weird one. Like I came away from it with some real kind of enthusiasm, but also with some caution and some dampeners, mainly due to the regulatory stuff. So I'm going to be really interested to see in the next month or so how the Indian government start to deal with it. But also it was a lot of fun, a lot of great energy, a lot of great people from sponsors coming from outside India to India, but then a load of the Indians just warmly welcoming all of us and this emerging technology into their worlds. And I just, from the perspective of building infrastructure, I think it's the kind of place that can really benefit hugely. The kinds of improvements that we would see in a Western world, going from what we currently have to what we might have, would be nice. But I think what they currently have, infrastructure-wise, is really quite weak. And I think blockchain has a potential to really start to make the most of it and provide better services. That's more of a feeling than a fact-driven thing. Eric, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, we've hit 1 o'clock. This was a great community call. Thanks everyone for joining.
Much better than a spinning penis, right?
Yes, we have to keep those off the community calls.
Bye.
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 Bye.